Phoenix Suns Solar Panel podcast. Really excited. This is a bit of a different episode that we normally do, but we did one of these a couple of weeks ago that I didn't have a chance to actually be a part of. But I'm super excited today. Joining us, as always, we have Mr. Greg Esposito,
Ahoy hoy.
Mr. Dave King,
How's it going, everyone?
and a very, very special guest on today's show, Caroline Darney. She is with streakingthelawn.com, the Virginia Cavaliers SB Nation website. How's it going?
Hey, good morning. I was going to complain about it being early, but you guys are even earlier than me. So
Yeah, some of us are. Tim's East Coast, but yeah.
Caroline, you should be honored because Tim usually butchers people's names, and he got yours right.
That was perfect. There's no Caroline. It's great. You guys crushed it.
So, Caroline, we're here to talk.
While you're ahead.
We're here to talk about Ty Jerome, a player that not a lot of Suns fans are really that aware of. He had a really exciting college career. I've actually talked to a couple of people that have followed Virginia that were just so excited that he was drafted by the Suns and said that Suns fans are just absolutely going to love this kid.
Yes, 100%. I've covered the team most of the last probably 6-7 years. So 2013-14 was the first season that I really covered Virginia closely on a press pass and the whole thing. I did my undergrad there, so familiar with the program and how it's progressed. And Ty Jerome is maybe one of my favorites to have come through this program. And that's not just because he helped them win a national championship. That certainly helps cement your legacy when it comes to being a fan favorite. He was perhaps the most consistent throughout a tournament that featured a lot of players that had shining moments. Not to be too cliche with the one shining moment thing, but Ty's just an all-around complete player and great dude. So when he went to the Suns, I was like, they're super lucky that they're getting a guy like Ty.
Well, what is it about Ty that made him so special and that you think will translate here in Phoenix as he makes that jump from college to the pros?
He's a competitor. And that's, again, I'm not trying to sound all these cliches, but this is one of the most competitive players that I've interacted with and talked to in covering these teams. And he wants to win more than anything. And he just finds a way to win and will never consider himself out or the team out of any contest. There were a couple games, not just in the national championship run. The last 3 games really were Virginia had, fewer than a 9% chance to win all 3 of them in the last couple seconds, but pulled all of them out. And that was a big part of Ty Jerome saying they never gave up. They never were quit. And he's just fundamentally sound when it comes to basketball. People throw around basketball IQ and savvy. He's one of those guys that has this intangible. You look at him and you'll watch him play, and he had hip surgery, I think, halfway through his senior season in high school, so right before he got to UVA. So some people always will complain or point out his doesn't look super athletic. His combine numbers won't jump off the page at you. He doesn't have the highest vertical. Allegedly, he can dunk. We saw a video of it from practice, but
not video.
Yeah,
grainy.
We've seen it.
It's got to be a grainy video.
Hey, I remember the same thing with Steve Nash, so that not being able to dunk isn't a big deal. So
yeah, exactly.
So he had a teammate last year, DeAndre Hunter, for the Phoenix Suns franchise. I know, I'm sure you follow us like crazy, but anyway, the Phoenix Suns franchise, we're used to prospects like DeAndre Hunter being the one drafted to the team, which is a one and done or short and done anyway. Player who's mostly about potential and the ability, skill sets that didn't really become the best player on the team or lead the team to their biggest wins. So that's the kind of profile that Suns fans are more used to. Tell us, in your opinion, whether, and Ty Jerome obviously went a few spots below DeAndre Hunter this year in the draft. Tell us how you compare those two players as a big fan of Virginia.
Absolutely. So what you're getting with Ty is a player that's, and honestly, DeAndre, Virginia is such a different beast than, say, a Duke or a Kentucky when it comes to, even DeAndre only played 2 years because he redshirted, but these are both guys that were in the college system at Virginia for 3 seasons. So, they're coming out people made fun of, well, actually they used it against DeAndre, that he's 22 or 21 years old, and that's now apparently too old, which, you know, makes me want to cry and stay in bed. But these are guys that DeAndre still has this growth potential into his frame, and he can add some weight and muscle, and I'm not saying that Ty doesn't, but Ty is a guy that he can come out and he's ready. He has such a complete game, and he has an ability to go out and be a leader from day one, in my opinion. Like, he's a guy, he's very outgoing. He was an unquestioned leader of this team, in my opinion. Just the way that he handled himself, he was able to motivate his teammates. He was able to lead. He was able to be a shoulder if they needed it. DeAndre's a much quieter person. His personality is just that way. Like, they had a panel last night, or the banner raising at Virginia for the championship. They had a panel with the two of them and Kyle Guy, who was the third member of the big three that got drafted this year for Virginia. And it was just shows their personalities perfectly. DeAndre didn't want to answer if he didn't have to. Like, they were letting the other guys speak up. And Ty's just the guy that you're getting someone that not only is ready to play, but is someone that I think you can build around, because he's a smart passer. He's a great shooter. And he's a good leader. So he's a guy that's ready-made. Put him in there, and I think you have a guy that you can actually build a franchise around.
Tell us more about that ceremony you're talking about last night.
Yeah, so it was really exciting. They decided to do a separate event rather than rush it and force. This is Virginia's first national championship in basketball, and so instead of having 14 seconds and raising it before the first game, they took a whole night, had a little bit of a fundraiser aspect to it. People could have, pay for tables on the floor and have a dinner. And then, stands were full, and they bring out the school president, the athletic director said a few things. Coach Bennett had a great speech. They showed a bunch of videos to make people cry. Like, it was awesome. And then they had the panel with the three players, and then they brought all the players up on stage, and they got to open their ring boxes and get their rings, and then they raised the banner. So it was great. Really, really nice event.
Important question. Did Ty Jerome cry?
I don't think he did. I asked him before the game or before the event if he was going to, and he looked at me, he's like, I don't know. That's another piece of Ty that I think why your fans will like him is he's funny and got this little bit of, I guess you want to, like, people want to describe it as like a New York edge, coming from just outside the city in New Rochelle. And, but he's right after Virginia took a lot of flack for the style and being boring, and the style will never win, and it's too much defense, and they don't have any athletes, and who's going to score points and that kind of thing. And after the national championship, he went on Francesa's show and was like, hey, you said we'd never win a national championship. And but he does it in a way where you don't think he's being a jerk. So it's this really nice balance of, he gets his point across and is respectful, but he's also like not going to let you get away with anything.
Dave, you're in trouble with him with the press conferences then.
No, I appreciate that. I like people that call me out on stuff. No, it'll be fun. I've seen him interviewed a couple of times listened to him on local radio, and then seen him on a podcast. And he just seems really genuine. Like, he'll actually answer your questions. He won't just give you. You won't think of the first, phrase that 1,000 other players have said. He'll actually answer the questions.
And there's a lot of players, Virginia going through losing to UMBC and being the first 1 seed to get upset by 16. Mm-hmm. Ty Jerome was one of the two players, him and Kyle Guy, that Coach Bennett brought to the podium with him. And I don't know if you've ever had a chance to watch that post game, but it's actually really impressive, especially now that Virginia fans can handle it because they have a national championship. But the ability for he was at the time finishing his second year to go out there and handle the whole thing with maturity, and they're not flipping tables over and yelling or being rude or any of that stuff that a lot of people say, like, oh, what does it matter? You lost, you should be embarrassed. But he really was one of the people on that team that took that game and let it become something positive for the program, as opposed to like ruining everything. So he was out there texting the coach the day after, like, we're going to build from this. We're going to be better after this. Like, so that's also kind of gives you an idea of, like, and they said, he said they asked him in every draft interview about that game specifically.
Caroline, we have a couple of listener questions here on the YouTube chat I want to get in. The first one is from Everything Horror, and he wants to know what player in the NBA that's currently playing does Ty Jerome remind you of?
Ooh, that's a good question. I'm trying to think current player, because honestly, when you said Steve Nash, he reminds me of that kind of style and the discipline of his game and the ability to pass and shoot, but not necessarily going to wow you with these athletic plays. I can't think of someone right off the top of my head. I will say, like, NBA is not my strongest.
we'll take Steve Nash if he.
Did you ever get to watch Steve Blake?
Yes, actually I did. Steve Blake played, well, dating myself again, while I was in school. So, and played Virginia a ton, obviously, is when they were still ACC. Steve Blake is actually a good one, though I never would have come up with that because, again, at the time, he was a rival. Like, big time. But he's one that is...
He was the Suns' rival as well. He just signed on to be an assistant coach on the team. That's what brought it full circle.
Oh, really?
But he used to kill the Suns in the NBA. Career backup, hardly ever started, but he'd always end up starting against the Suns and scoring 25 points and making every shot. Drove me nuts.
I'm trying to think of his name. I'm missing it now. Not Harrison Barnes. He played a couple of years ago. He's retired now. He got in that fight with Derek Fisher.
Not Matt Barnes.
Matt Barnes, right? Matt Barnes. He would kill the Suns, dude. Every time I'd watch him play.
Matt Barnes would kill the Suns.
Yeah, and it was
like, he doesn't remind me of Ty Jerome.
Yeah, I was like,
no, he doesn't. But he was just a player that, for some reason, every time he played the Suns, he scored 25 points. It was the weirdest thing.
Yeah, there was a handful of players like that.
The next listener question is coming from Jeremiah. He wants to know what character / skill sets do people undervalue or overlook with Ty?
I would say his passing ability. I don't know if they underlook it, but they don't talk about it as much that I've seen. He's a great shooter, and he's smart with the ball. But some of his passes that he gets off, like, he passes people open. Like, it's unbelievable. His vision, his court IQ, like that, all of it together, like where he understands where people are going to be and where they're supposed to be and where he's supposed to set them up to succeed, I think is something that he brings to the table that is going to be the biggest benefit for y'all. Like, people could, like, there are a bunch of great shooters around the country, whether, coming out of college, already in the NBA. Like, there's people that can shoot the ball. Having someone that can shoot the ball is always obviously important because, that helps. But I think his ability to pass and get people open is one of the things that we're going to miss the most at Virginia, just because that's something that, he led the ACC in, pass to turnover ratio. He doesn't turn it over. He doesn't do dumb stuff with the ball, and I think that's really, really, really underrated.
Really underrated. Yeah, we're used to people doing dumb stuff with the ball. This is a Phoenix Suns team that's won 25% of their games the last 2 years, so that'll be new to us.
So important. The important stuff here. We heard a rumor that Ty's nickname is Milk. Was he called that at all at Virginia, or is this a weird rumor that we've just heard around these parts?
Yeah, I saw that video, and my favorite part about all of it was when they asked him whose nickname was Milk, and he's like, "I got no clue." I have not. He definitely was not anything that came from Virginia at all. Not a single person ever called him Milk, as far as I know, in Charlottesville. There was some tie ball game.
Tie ball game?
Yeah, it was probably. I mean, because
means he's not a winner because it's a tie. Yeah.
I know, right? So it didn't really work out. We're like, wait a minute. But they, descended in Jerome came up a lot too. Like, obviously that's not a nickname, but that call was always a favorite during broadcasts. And he has the propensity and the ability to hit these gigantic shots at big times. And one of those, they went on the road to Duke, not this past season, one before. And, late in the game, Virginia's up by 2 or 3. And I'm talking, there's like 45 seconds left. He looks off the defender by faking a pass, but he faked the pass to the scorer's table. Like, there was not a single Virginia player standing there. And I think it was Trayvon Duval. And the kid jumps just enough for Ty to let go, this gigantic three from like, NBA range and just cans it to put Virginia up 5 with like 40 seconds left, 35 seconds left. And it was just
funny, the no look pass. There's a real art to that. Some guys are really good at looking the player they're going to pass to down until half a second before they throw the pass, and they purposely turn their head and look away while the pass is going. So it's not really a no look pass.
Yeah.
And so hopefully Ty Jerome actually has a good no look like Juke pass.
Yes, he does.
So as far as Ty Jerome in his qualities, I know it sounds great. We've had a player on the end of the bench for the Suns for off and on last few years named Alan Williams. He came from a smaller school, and I'm not comparing him to Ty necessarily, but he was a great cheerleader, great personality, really good. That didn't make him a great NBA player. So you can be really fun and easy to talk to and score 5 points a game in the NBA.
Sure.
Tell me what I know you talked about his competitiveness. You talked about his shooting and his scoring, shooting and his passing. Do you see him as being a career kind of Steve Blake backup guy? Do you see him being a Luke Ridnour type? And I know I'm probably typecasting here, but tell me, what do you think separates him from those guys as opposed to, and we shouldn't compare him necessarily to Steve Nash, 2-time MVP, but
sure.
What would make him a starter over a career fun guy to have on the bench for 10 years?
Yeah, the big thing is, one, his size for a point guard is great. So he's 6'5". He does have a negative wingspan, but that never really got in his way in college. He played
6'4", right?
Oh, is that what he measured out to at the combine?
Yeah.
They always said 6'5" in the program, so I guess they gave him that Charlottesville bump.
Yeah.
And now I'm wondering how tall some of the other people are.
No, 6'4" wingspan.
Oh, 6'4" wingspan. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So he's 6'5", has a 6'4" wingspan. That sounds about right. He improved every year in defense. He improved every single season in his ability to make things happen at the rim. I like how I'm acting it out. Sorry. YouTube was enjoying it. Like when he goes and puts the basketball in the hoop. But he developed this beautiful floater that came in handy a lot in the tournament. He's a physical player. He can get through. And I just think that he's more of the guy that is going to, maybe I'm projecting and this is what I hope for him, but based on my interactions with him and he's played against, by playing in the ACC, you're playing against like the best players, a lot of the best players, and no knock to the SEC because we got Kentucky over there and stuff like that. But, and you're going in and out against Duke and Carolina, multiple times, and you've got, Virginia Tech was really good the past couple of years. Florida State they keep bringing in guys that are 6'10" with like the longest arms in the world. Like he's had to play against some of these challenging teams, and there's no nights off in the ACC, and he's consistently, I think, was the other two guys, Dre and Kyle, will get all the press. They got all the accolades. They got the ACC first and second teams, the All-American third teams. I think Ty, honestly, was probably the most important player on the team just because of the fact of what role he played, keeping everything together and being that floor general, the floor manager. I just think that he's going to hopefully have a long, successful career because he works hard and he has the skills to do it.
Rick Bonnell, NBA writer, right after Ty was drafted, he said that he spoke with NBA executives on his guess on a player who won't be drafted that high, but will have a long, productive career, and they all said Ty.
Yeah.
So, one thing that really stands out to me with Ty, we've talked about it a little bit, but his passing, but not just his passing when he has a ball in his hand, but his quick decision when he's passed the ball to get rid of it to the right player right after and make the right read. His court vision seems really good. Obviously I've watched his highlights. I haven't watched a ton of games with Virginia, but in all the highlights I've seen, he's really good playing through contact down low, and I don't know if that is merely the highlights I'm watching or if that's an accurate representation of him as a player.
That's an accurate representation of him as a player, especially last season. Obviously, players develop through college and get better at things, and his first year, he had like a coming out game against Notre Dame, and then he had an outstanding game then at number 1 Villanova. They played them randomly in the middle of ACC play. And he almost single-handedly, he was waving more senior players off to go ISO and take guys to the hoop. And because he found guys that he felt he could beat, and he could, and he did it really well. And it was just that was the first glimpse of who Ty Jerome was going to become at Virginia, because he has the confidence, he understands what he's able to do, and then does it. He doesn't worry about offending a senior player or, making a mistake, because he knows he's just going to get better if it doesn't work out. So I think that's something that he got much better in over his time. And again, some of those shots that he made in the lane, just in the championship run, were so impressive. So I think I think he's going to be great.
Oh, great. So another thing with the NBA is that Ty Jerome is I believe he's the oldest guy taking the lottery in the last 55 years or something along that line. And really, he grew in his career at Virginia. He wasn't a full-time starter the whole time. He didn't jump on the scene like one of these one-and-done freshmen do, where he's just suddenly the man on his team and then taken in the lottery, which is another thing Suns fans are used to. And so that's why we're all a little just wondering what the heck is going on with taking an old guy who's played 4 years or 3 years in college. Tell us about his progression and how he handled not being the man right off the bat coming into college.
Yeah, he used it as an opportunity to grow, and that's what I think is so important. And he understands, I'm trying to make sure I get my years exactly right, who he was playing with and under. Devin Hall is a guy that, he was drafted by Oklahoma City, and he is on a 2-way contract now this year after playing in the Australian League. Devin's a guy that, again, was a 5-year player at Virginia. He played under, alongside Isaiah Wilkins, these guys that he had an opportunity to really learn from. And with Tony Bennett and what those guys knew when they committed to Virginia and Tony Bennett is you're not going to see the court if you can't play defense. So that was the first thing that I think Ty really had to improve upon was his defense. And you could see that he put in that work and that he grew as a player on that end of the court. So the more defense that you can play, the better you are at defense, the more likely you are to play on the court. Because even if you're the best, we haven't actually run into this yet because DeAndre's an actually really good defender, but testing out Tony's thing of, if you're not ready, I'm not putting you on the court. But he really progressed there. And again, with that competitiveness, I think he sees that as he sees it as an opportunity to get better and grow, as opposed to an opportunity to sit on the bench and pout or hold it against his other teammates that he's maybe outperform them in practice or something like that. So I think that it just shows, again, he was just one of my favorite kids to cover the whole, the way that he handled himself, the way that he played, the way that he was off the court, just the person he was, a genuinely nice guy. And with a little bit of edge, which is always good. And I also really like Justin, Justin Jackson. Am I getting the name right? The number 11 pick you guys took. Oh, Cam Johnson. What am I saying? Cam Johnson. Yeah, Justin Jackson. That is a person.
I thought you were talking about Josh Jackson for a second. I was I don't know.
Oh, yeah.
I know a lot of Suns fans were really concerned about him going at 11.
Cam.
But Cam is a delight. And I think that the two of them together will actually be really solid for you guys. Cam's a great shooter. That's a kid that can
best shooter in the draft. The Suns' backcourt shooting should be a lot better this year than it has in previous years. Well, Caroline, we really appreciate you joining us. So people can find you, streakingthelawn.com. Where can they find you on the Twitter?
The Twitter, you can find me at CW Darney, and that's Barney with a D.
Okay.
To find it.
Did you just make a Barney joke?
Did Dave just do a Barney impersonation? Is the creepier thing?
Yeah.
We've gone off the rails. Caroline, thanks for joining us.
He was purple. That's a Suns fan right there.
I know. You've got the shirt on already, too. Yeah. No, I appreciate it. And you guys are going to love Ty. You're going to have a lot of fun.
All right. Thank you very much. Thank you for coming on today.